Hello friends, welcome back to our new channel. This is Svetlana. I will be sharing a holiday card featuring white stamp poinsettias and sharing several card making tips along the way. I will be using the holiday bow stamp set to create elements for my card, and I will be starting by making poinsettias. First I'm going to die cut them using the matching die, and then I will be stamping onto the die cuts. Here I have 4 panels of 80-pound solar white cardstock, and I will be die cutting out of 2 panels at a time. A wafer thin die perfectly die cuts out of 2 sheets of 80-pound cardstock, and it saves me some time on die cutting. I made 4 die cuts of the flower by only running 2 times through my die cutting machine. Next, I am taking one of the panels and placing it into my mini MISTI. I will be using the poinsettia negative space as a die cut holder. To stamp quote-unquote white poinsettias, I will be skipping the bottom layer and only using another one from the set, the one that has petals shading. This stamp I'm aligning along the die cut and mounting it to the MISTI lid. For stamping, I will be using the lightest warm gray ink I own, which is Morning Frost dye ink. I'm stamping onto all poinsettia die cuts, replacing them in the negative space. The stamp is already mounted in the right spot, and the negative space provides the right die cut placement every time. It's a very quick and satisfying process, I should say. Next, I will be stamping the flower center using the evening gray dye ink onto each die cut. Here again, I just need to repeatedly place die cuts into the negative space and stamp onto each one. When you stamp using a stamp positioning tool, such tasks are quite easy. You can simply take several sheets of cardstock, alternate them in the MISTI base, and stamp perfectly a lot of elements with little effort, as you would only need to align a stamp once for all elements. But then you would need to die cut them separately, every time aligning a die along a stamped element. The way I'm doing it now takes the die cut aligning out of the equation and makes the whole process a bit faster. Here you can see that I moved on to creating the next batch of elements. This time I'm working on pine branches. I made several die cuts of it already, and now I'm stamping onto them using the same technique. Sometimes to better align a stamp on a die cut, I'm picking up the MISTI and looking at the stamp from all sides, making sure that it's placed evenly along the die cut edges. To stamp pine needles, I'm using the evergreen dye ink, and to stamp the branch, I'm using the espresso ink. You may notice that I have a piece of painter's tape stuck to my hand. Sometimes it can be challenging to get a die cut out of a negative space. Pulling it with a sticky tape helps a lot. Okay, I stamped the pine branches, and also through the magic of editing, you can see that I made some more elements like berry picks and leaves. Also, I die cut the candy cane stripe cover die out of a red cardstock, and I made a card base out of the same cardstock. I'm making a sticky roll of a painter's tape to keep the card base flaps together while I will be assembling the card. First, I will be adhering the candy cane strip cover die onto the card base. I like using tone-on-tone background die cuts as they add interest to a card but don't overwhelm the whole card design and don't fight with other elements. After I applied a liquid adhesive onto the die cut, I'm taping it against a scrap piece of paper to remove the adhesive excess so it won't ooze when I place the die cut onto the card base. Next, I'm planning the focal point design by moving around all elements I created before. This process can take some time. It's great that I can speed it up here. I'm not the biggest pro when it comes to eye-catching and well-balanced compositions. It takes me some time to come up with one, but it's a part of the process and I enjoy it. One small tip. Since all my flowers are the same color, if I place them right onto another, they will blend in one poinsettia-shaped blob. Usually when we stamp with some color, the white die-cut border would visually separate die-cuts of the same color, as it happens, for example, with green elements. But my flowers are almost white, and this white die-cut border is not enough. To visually separate them, I'm tucking small leaves in areas where flowers overlap. Once I'm happy with the placement, I'm taking a photo with my phone to refer to it later. Next, I will be adhering the elements, and I'm doing it one element at a time, starting from those placed at the very bottom. I'm removing an element carefully, trying not to break the composition, applying the liquid adhesive, and then tuck it back into its place. I like using tweezers to hold the elements. I'm quite clumsy, and if I did it with my bare hands, I would already ruined the composition. Now, I adhered some elements already, and 2 flowers I want to pop up to add some dimension to the card. I also want to place them on different levels, so to speak. So for one, I will be using thin adhesive foam squares, and for the one on top, I'm using regular foam squares. When I finished adhering all elements, I felt like something was missing. It wasn't as balanced as I'd like. Luckily, I had one stamped poinsettia left, so I cut it in pieces and tucked them in different parts of the composition. For the sentiment, I'm using a one from the Modern Deer stamp set, and I'm white embossing it onto a Jack Black cardstock piece. I always save such odd cardstock leftovers, as they can be used for sentiments. I was applying baby powder onto the cardstock to prevent loose embossing powder particles. Now I'm erasing it with an eraser. Next, I'm fuzzy cutting the sentiment using my scissors. Lastly, I popped up the set sentiment, which finished off the card. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments. Also, consider subscribing to the Altenew channel and click the bell button if you didn't do so already. Thank you for stopping by. Goodbye.
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.